wrote a story.
Uncle Harold wrote this story about his time during World War II, and it was a most marvelous story. And I sent it around to my kids, and Daniel has told me that he's read it many times and he thinks it would make a great movie.
Really? Was he, where was he? Was he in Belgium?
He was in multiple countries, but
He was in France, I know.
Germany.
Yeah, France, Germany. I think he may have been in Italy for a little while. I don't.
But when he got
Frostbite.
trench foot.
Yeah, I don't
That
remember
was-
for sure.
That was
In
in
the Battle of
France,
the Bulge
up
time.
in the mountains in France, wasn't it?
I think so.
Yeah.
He told me this fascinating story that when he came back, you know, they went out to California and his legs, it took him a long, he was in the hospital a long time with trench foot. And then when he's back, he goes out to California and he's doing better. But he has this job and it was fairly demanding, and he would come home at night and take off his shoes and they were just filled with blood because he had trouble with that for the rest of his life.
Right.
He had it recurring, you know, come and go.
Right.
But when he was elderly, he was having a lot of
A lot of
trouble
trouble
with that
again when he got older.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he had to almost live in the South all the time to keep his feet from getting cold. You know.
He
They
also,
didn't have good circulation.
right.
Yeah.
He told me that they found an old cabin that was vacant and during the war, and they were 3 or 4 of them went in and sat down, and there was shooting all around them, and they were afraid they were going to be found. And when they finally found them, somebody found them. I don't know the story. They couldn't get up. They were sitting.
They all had to
with
be
their legs.
carried into
They had
the
to be
truck.
carried out because their legs were
Mhm.
straight out, and they were so cold and so wet and so
Yeah.
And
They
they
had-
hadn't moved in so
they hadn't
long.
moved
Yeah.
because they were afraid to move. I guess I don't know
Right.
that they had to carry them out.
Mhm.
Band of Brothers does an excellent job of showing
Does that.
that Battle of the Bulge. Well,
And by the way, there was 3 of them in the war, right? Yeah.
Three of
Harold-
Grandma's kids.
Right.
Yeah.
Harold, Elwood, and Kenny.
All in Europe at the same time.
Well, Uncle
Somebody was in
Elwood was in Africa.
yeah.
Well, but they all 3 got together at least once.
I think
Yeah.
the
The
2
two
of
of
them,
'em.
right? 2 of them did.
Okay.
It was Uncle Kenny and
In Paris.
And Uncle Harold.
And they
Uncle
met
Harold
at
wrote about that.
it was Kenny and Harold. Yeah,
Yeah.
they were at an orphanage and they got
Mhm.
together. So.
Mhm.
And then there was Elwood. Your turn.
Oh, Elwood is my very favorite. My kid's very favorite. Everyone loves Uncle Elwood. He was just such a tender soul. And when I was having trouble, like many people do, he was just listen,
Mhm.
you know, come and listen and go blackberry picking. My kids loved him. Yeah. What a dear man.
He was.
Yeah.
And he married late also.
And
he
never had any kids of his
never
own.
had kids.
No.
And neither did Wilbur.
She had to. Right?
She had 2.
Yeah.
But and the younger one was pretty young when he married her.
Mike.
Like,
Yeah.
Mhm. Ronnie and Mike. And he,
Ronnie had schizophrenia.
right.
Yeah, and so hard for Gladys toward the end of her life because he was not, you know, he would not take his medication. He would not. She a lot of times couldn't find him, or if she could find him, he didn't want anything to do with her. So that was a really, really rough thing.
That's true.
Yeah,
So-
they had a hard time.
And then
Anna always loved Uncle Elwood, and she was always also close to Aunt Gladys.
Mhm.
Yeah.
and Jose was too.
Yeah, and Jose was too.
They were
spent a lot
awful
of
good
time
doggone
together.
on Jose.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
And then there was Mother.
We like Mother.
Yes.
Yeah.
We like Mother a lot.
Our favorite.
Uncle
More or
Kenny's
less.
after.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Uncle
He's
Kenny.
after Mother.
Who?
On the
Kenny.
list, he's
Oh,
first.
sorry. I'm sorry. Mother was the young. Kenny was the youngest. Sorry, I put it wrong. Sorry. So what can we say about Mother?
Well, we're gonna be talking about Mother
All
all the way
along,
through
but-
everything.
However, when they were growing up, her dad died when she was 3. Uncle Kenny was a year and a half, and I think Uncle Elvin was 12 or 13, and so he went to work, and he also went to school to help, and there was no Social Security then, no.
They basically had nothing.
They had nothing.
And all the kids had to work to help
Right.
get the.
And
But it was during the Depression and nobody else had anything either.
That's correct.
So they didn't really think anything about it.
Nothing was. Everybody helped everybody. They
Right.
lived on Watts Avenue in town.
They took in laundry.
She took in the Central Boys laundry,
Mhm.
mostly the boys. I guess the girls did their own. I don't know.
Well, and the uncles
might not have been
would
any
deliver
good.
it back to them with their wagon. They
Little
would-
red wagons.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah,
They take the laundry back to the
yeah.
right.
She would love to have gone to college. What I remember about Mother is that she always correct our grammar. And
See, I'm not the only one. I'm
I
always
always
correct.
felt like I was like she was trying to make me sometimes what she wanted me to be,
Right.
that she didn't have the opportunity. So she made me take piano lessons, which of course I don't want to take, and was not very cooperative about, and all that kind of thing. But I think that's she wanted
What she didn't have.
what she didn't have. Yeah.
Well, I think, didn't all of us take piano lessons for at least a year? Did you?
I remember doing guitar lessons.
Okay.
I took piano.
We all took piano, and she also sent Judy and me to ballet and
Judy and
tap.
I.
Yeah.
Oh, there she goes.
Judy and me.
Okay.
Yeah, because it would be, she
Yeah,
sent me.
that's true. All right.
It is correct.
Right.
So she didn't correct enough.
I
grammar.
I got to show them that we have humor also.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh,
All right. And Uncle Kenny.
He was the youngster. Now, how did he do so well?
He got into streets drugs.
He got his drugs.
That's how he did it.
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
He opened a store.
Good
Street
for him.
drugs.
Well, he
Yeah,
worked
how
for
he made it to
Mr.
college.
Ross.
Mm-hmm.
He worked for Mr. Ross before
At
he
the
went to
store.
service. And when he got in the service, because he had worked at a drugstore, they
Yeah.
made him a medic.
That's right.
Yeah.
So-
And so when he got out, he went to school to be a pharmacist.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
yeah.
And-
And he did not carry guns during his service. He was.
He was a
He was a medic.
He was a medic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they met, that's when he met Uncle Harold in Europe. I think it was in Belgium, but I'm not sure.
I think it was Paris.
And it could have been in France, I don't know. Uncle Kenny was delivering things to an orphanage for Christmas. And
Yeah, that
Uncle,
was in Germany. It
and,
was a German orphanage. I remember
Okay.
that.
and Uncle Harold showed up at the same time. And here they are in Europe and
Mhm.
in the war, and they got to get together. So, and Uncle Kenny married Vivian Lee Overstreet.
It was a
So she named
powerhouse.
her, she switched her name from Overstreet to Street. She let off the over.
See, Mother always said he didn't ask Vivian to
No.
marry him. He just asked her to drop over.
Tell us that story about pursuing him.
Now that's cute.
Oh, yeah.
It's a great story.
What was the story?
Oh,
I
yeah,
don't
she had
remember,
to
but
be
she
the-
was pursuing him.
Well, who remembers it?
Well, he wouldn't ask her to marry him. So she said, "What do I do?"
Uh-huh.
She'd go to Mother and Daddy and say, "What do I do? How do I get him to marry me?"
Yeah,
So you
because he
follow
thought,
around.
Just drop over.
Just drop the over.
Drop the over. Okay.
Anyway, they got married and had 4 children, and the first 2 died. One of them pretty soon, and one of them at 6 months, and that was the first. And we were all very concerned. And then she got pregnant again, and she said, "This time it's going to be okay." Her mother told me
That
that. She
was
said
Dennis.
she was sitting there and she started crying. Aunt Vivian did, but and then she quit crying and she said, "This time it's going to be okay," and it was. And then she had Dennis and Tommy.
it was so awful. That second baby had spinal bifida.
She had the water on the brain.
Huh?
Yeah.
Isn't that right?
Mhm.
Yeah. And he lived for, well, Judy said 6 months. I thought it was 9 or 10, but anyway, it was right in that neighborhood. And they knew from the time he was born that he wouldn't live long.
Yeah.
And it was just heartbreaking. But
I'm sure.
Then they had 2 kids that were perfectly normal, so.
Right.
And Vivian ruled the town.
Yes, she did.
She did. She did everything.
She did a lot of stuff, didn't
She
she?
did.
She.
Well, she was a mover and a shaker.
You did.
I'm
You
sorry.
I ironed for them.
Yes, you did.
Yeah,
During in high
she's the
school.
one that taught me how to iron.
Mm.
Yeah.
She taught you how too. right?
Yes, she did. She did. There was no doubt how to do it.
Yeah.
She got done with me.
There is a way.
She was in the chamber. She was in charge of the Christmas parade. She was
Halloween parade.
big in the church and.
Well, she got things done.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, some people resented it,
Mhm.
but she got things done.
But all of the people who married those siblings, all of them with the exception of Edward
Albert Lee.
they married fairly submissive. They married very dominant people, I should say.
Right.
Yeah.
Every one of them. You know,
Yeah,
think
they
about
did.
Gladys and Vivian and
Mhm.
Julius and,
Yeah.
you know, really.
Doris was dominant. She told Uncle Harold what to do.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
worked
yeah.
for them.
they did. They did. And it occurred just the opposite on the Johnmeyer side.
All right.
So
Yep.
yeah. So okay. Any more about the Street family?
The only thing I just occurred to me is that I always felt like the Street family, when we were growing up, the Street family was second fiddle and the Johnmeyer family was
For sure.
first.
Yeah.
And I wish I'd had more opportunity and chance to know some of the Street family a little better, especially the cousins, not just
Mhm.
my first cousins, but who else were the cousins? I have no idea who else Mother was related to, really. I know she had a lot of cousins.
And she
around.
had a lot of cousins, cause her
And I didn't know who they
grandfather
were.
was married 4 times, and
Uh,
he had 12 children.
But we knew G.W. Eaton was one of them.
See, I
Lowell
didn't
Eaton was
really know
see
that.
what yeah.
But we were different generations.
you were gone. Yeah. Lowell Eaton was one of them.
Uh-huh.
And G.W.
Different times.
Yeah, and there was and each wife had several children,
Yeah,
Mhm.
and all 4 wives died.
yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
But on the street side, the first cousins, our cousins,
Right.
weren't near as many or as close
No, they
as
just,
we had on the
Well,
Johnmeyer
and
side.
Edith didn't live here.
Right, they didn't. we
Uncle
didn't-
Elwood didn't have any.
We didn't
Uncle
see
Elwood
much.
didn't have any.
Yeah, And
Uncle
so-
Kenny had 2. They were a lot younger.
yeah,
So there's no reason other than the circumstances.
yeah,
Right.
You
Yeah.
know,
I just felt like
yeah.
they were a different, they didn't feel like they were on the same level.
well,
you
they
know.
weren't. I didn't really know my uncles till I got grown up.
Mhm.
But one
I
story
knew him, yeah.
that Mother told about Judy, when Judy was the only child that Mother and Daddy had at the time, and when she started talking, she would call and talk to some of her brothers, and at that time, Uncle Lelburn and Uncle Elwood were both still living at home with Grandma Street, and they'd get on the phone, and they'd hear Judy, and they'd say to Mother, "Keep her on the phone. I want to come out and watch her talk on the phone."
And
So
they
they
drive
would,
out.
they would drive out to see Judy talking on the phone. So they were crazy about us.
They were.
Yeah.
They were. I mean, I always felt like they loved me very much, and that I was always.
Right.
Yeah.
But we didn't know them very well.
Right.
Yeah.
yeah.
You know.
And Uncle Elwood, people used to say, I think Mother told me once, that he got dropped on his head when he was an infant. Or
That's what they told.
yeah, I don't know whether they
Yeah.
just told it as a story or
Which
what.
one did? Oh,
Uncle Elwood, yeah, and she'd say that's why he's the way he is or something. Yeah.
And they'd say, one of their neighbors would say, "Poor ugly Elwood."
Yeah, come along.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna stop there.